Joining me today is a seasoned Australian actor known for his depth and authenticity in his character portrayals. He has appeared in Sons and Daughters, A Country Practice, Flying Doctors, A Place to Call Home, a feature film Archer with Nicole Kidman, and appearances in nearly all well-known Australian productions. It's Brett Climo I'm talking about. I'm Ian Bunston. Welcome to Monday Matters. Welcome, Brett. It's a privilege to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, Ian. It's a privilege to be chatting with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Brett, as a very young child, you experienced some tragic circumstances. How did this impact you?
Yes, my father died when I was three, water skiing on the Hawkesbury, and I had two older sisters, and so my mother. He was they were next door neighbors, my mum and my dad, and she was it was the love of her life, and at the age of 26, she was left to look after three children and raise three children. Consequently, I was raised by three women until my mother remarried quite a little bit later on. And so that's pretty much informed how I suppose view the world, very much from a woman's point of view.
And it seems like your mother had quite an impact on you. I think when we were chatting earlier, there's some expression of determination with grace. To
Indeed, indeed. Well, I say that because I do remember Mum would renovate bathrooms, um, but she was the most graceful and beautiful woman. She'd be, but she got in and did the hard work, because we didn't have any money. And as I say, she just had this most extraordinary will, I suppose. And when I look back on it, her strength as a young woman to to just move on and not give up. I can't think what it would have been like, to have lost the man that you love and have these little three kids. I remember the days after the accident and her strength then and saying to me that I was going to be her little man, and that you look after me, or words to that effect, that as you get older you lose what the actual words were. But I remember even back then it wasn't so much a duty I had, but it was just this bond that we had then, and we still have it to this day. Um, but what it taught me as well was the respect of strong women, and that I just have so much respect for that.
So, Brett, moving in to your acting career, and you've had a stellar career. What was the genesis, do you think, of your passion for acting, and just was it just a natural thing for you?
I it became a natural thing, but to start with, I really my mother picked up something. I was in a highly uncreative environment at school, but the one creative moment was debating, and I actually disliked being in front of people, but somehow I joined the debating team and I quite liked it. And my mother would kind of thought, because I was in front of people, that maybe I'd like to be in front of people more often. So she enrolled me at a course at the Opera House called Cornstalks. And I think I was about 16, I think. And apart from debating, I wasn't enjoying school at all. It wasn't the right fit for me, particularly. I don't know, it was just that school, but it just wasn't. And I went along to the Opera House, and there were kids, workshopping and doing drama. But what they were playing around with was cameras, and they were talking about, video workshops, and they were going off to, audition for TV commercials. And I kind of thought after a couple of weeks they were talking about they were doing this little job and whatever, these kids, and I thought, sounds pretty easy. I think I might be able to do that. So sure enough, I literally took a day off school. I wagged a day off school and knocked around agents' doors and got an agent, got some headshots done, and yeah, and within a week or so, I think I did a TV commercial. It happened that quickly. I can't just describe the determination I had to make it work. It was almost as though I was not going to not make it work. I've never felt so determined, I don't think, in my life. Anyway, one thing led to another, seriously. And my mother and my stepfather at the time, sorry, still my stepfather, but they were very unsure of this, and that I could see a path to leave school and also to earn a living doing something. And the acting part of it came very naturally to me. I don't know how to describe it. I looked, I learned, I had some very, very good mentors, and yeah, I was fairly passionate about it, and I was very determined.
So as your acting career came into fruition and obviously became more serious, did
Mm.
your mum ever doubt that the future for you in that field, or and discourage you possibly from going into acting?
No. Well, in the early days, yes, because it was the uncertainty and the financial uncertainty. Uh, but then I landed the role in Sons and Daughters, and I was still living at home then. Uh, and I remember when the first day that they delivered the scripts, and I was in the in the living room reading the scripts, and I think my mother saw then that it was fairly serious, and I think the contract was 3 months or something, and I think then she realised that I was on my way, and obviously I'd left school by then, um, and so that was an issue that was sort of well and truly dealt with, fortunately, and I was on my way, and after that, I not long after that I moved out of home because I was after Sons and Daughters. I got shows that were taking me. I was traveling all over Australia, really, and no, they were just very proud. But it's the uncertainty. What a lot of people don't understand, and what my family didn't understand, as well as in the periods of unemployment. Sometimes someone would say to me within the family, "Oh, maybe you should get a real job. Well, maybe you." And it's very hard to describe to them that it's the ups and downs of the industry. There are going to be quiet times, and yeah, and occasionally, and they don't say it to me anymore, but I have a dear brother-in-law who up until only probably a few years ago said to me, "You know what? Don't getting on now? Don't you think you should look at getting something a bit more secure? Maybe or maybe don't you think you should get a better agent?" I've got a
Yeah,
better agent.
yeah, no, it's great. Now, you've been in so many different productions, and in many ways, you've been quite a frequent visitor to all of our homes, and watching you on TV. Tell us about some of your favorite roles. I mean, we've already mentioned Sons and Daughters, A Country Practice, A Place to Call Home, but is there something that stands out as a favorite?
I think the role in the country practice because I do remember it was a conscious decision to find solid employment. So my wife Michelle and I, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife Michelle, we had been together for a couple of years, and I knew that it was I knew that she was the person for me, and I suppose because of my upbringing of not, and my mother did a wonderful, wonderful job, but there was insecurity in our upbringing financially. And it was very important to me to provide security. And a lot of my friends were pursuing a film career. And a mentor of mine, who turned out to be a very good friend of mine, a wonderful producer, creative producer called Bruce Best, at the time was producing A Country Practice. And he said to me, "Look, I think we have a role for you. It'll be a 3-year contract." Um, you know, for me, it was a dream. But I do remember consciously hopping into a television show, and I had some very serious actors around me, in contemporaries, who kind of turned their noses. Um, it wasn't cool to do that. But I thought it was the right thing for me and my life, and it was. And not only that, it was a lovely show. I hadn't watched it. I had no idea how popular the show was until I joined it. But then I understood why it was so popular, because it just had this this beautiful sense of community about it. You know, the hospital was the hub of this tight community, and it was such a well-loved show for that reason. I think it gave people a real sense of comfort, um, and safety. And such an enjoyable period. And also, I would always say to directors, tell me something. What am I? Help me. You know, I because often directors think you know what you're doing, and I'd always say, look, I'm learning. I wanted to learn. Tell me what can I? Remember, one director said once, you move too much. Try and just be still. You know, uh, yeah, you know, little things like that. And I just found it was just a wonderful learning curve,
Mm.
and it gave me a lot of confidence. It was a lovely, lovely time, and that was a springboard for me really to do other things.
So Brett, tell us about the arriving on set experience, you know, when you've got the camera likes action type thing and taming your nerves.
Well, it's when you're the lead in a show. Forget the first day when everyone turns up and you know you're a lead, like a place to call home, for example. You're there in the beginning. They want you there in the beginning, so that gives you an enormous sense of security and confidence. The hard part of the acting world is when you're a guest artist coming into a show that's up and running. Everybody is hitting their marks. It's like a football team. Everybody is playing at optimum level, and you come in and you've got to immediately hit that level. So how you prepare for that, you've got to know your work. You've got to be centered before you get there because it's very fast these days. The producers don't like wasting money, and they only hire people now that can deliver. And it's a machine that does not stop. So that can be quite daunting because if you fall behind a little bit on a day or you lose confidence, you're costing money, and it's so you've really got to center yourself here. You've got to really, really know your work. You're pedaling a lot under here, but up here, you've just got to be present and you've got to remain calm. I suppose that is part of the acting world, and that's possibly part of the talent of acting in front of a camera. Um, and I don't know if you can teach that. Um, I certainly know. I don't quite know if this is relevant or not, but as a younger person, the anxiety didn't worry me so much. I had no fear when I was younger. But what I am finding is the older you get, and it's not so much how much work you've done. I did a show at the end of the year, and I think I did a reasonable job, but I do remember being quite anxious. And all the things I just said to you about how you approach and how you center or whatever, I was in the caravan before I was going on, doing all of those things, just saying, my goodness, here I am, and I was working with Brian Brown and Greta Scacchi, two of my favorite actors. So I was kind of nervous working with one of my heroes. And yeah, I felt so nervous. And I thought, wow, I don't think I've ever felt like this before. And I just wondered, is that an age thing? Because, you know, when you're younger, you're more reckless and you just don't care so much. But I don't know. But anyway, we got through it.
Mm.
But I had to keep reminding myself of, okay, here we are, just calm down. You know the work, trust yourself. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Now, Brett, you've worked with some notable actors. I'm thinking there's Nicole Kidman, there's Hugh Jackman, Guy Pearce, and a range of others. You already mentioned just Brian Brown. Um,
Correct.
when you're in front or around these people, like, I mean, did you get nervous then, or were you still in those younger days still able to calm the nerves?
Well, the funny part about the movie Archer that you've mentioned, with Nicole Kidman, is that it was a story about Archer, the horse that won the Melbourne Cup, and his strapper that walked him walked him down from Wollongong to Melbourne. Anyway, it was the Archer, the horse was the lead, but I was the co-lead, so it was the two of us. Nicole had 2 days on the show. And she was delightful. But back then, we're actually paired together quite often. We did another ABC show called Chase Through the Night. And nobody, I mean, Nicole back then was a stunning girl and she was very talented, but we were both young. We were both 19 years old or 18 years old. No one knew that Nicole was going to, become the person she is. The funny part about the story, though, Ian, is that on the original video cover, it was me and the horse. A couple of years later, when Nicole hit this, hit the headlines. I walked into a video shop and suddenly it's Archer and Nicole's face is on the cover and she's in literally two scenes. And that's how you promote things, right?
Yeah.
But Guy Pearce, we met on a show called Man from Snowy River. And he is just a delightful man. He deserves every success. He's the most down to earth gentleman you could meet. And once again, I briefly worked with Hugh. Hugh came on a couple of days when Guy Pearce actually left Man from Snow River to do a movie in America. They replaced him with Hugh, so I got to know Hugh before he became. And once again, decent, gentle guys, feet on the ground, and they get where they are because they're just very talented, very talented.
Hmm. Now, Brett, this is a fascinating conversation just to hear your journey and what it's been like. But I can't not just mention how I met you and your wife Michelle in a little cafe down in Fitzroy, Babco, where we often are there weekly. Because I meet my son and we have a swim at the pool and then we have breakfast here. And here's
I
this.
love seeing you two. I was intrigued by that relationship at the counter there. I didn't know if you're mentoring someone. It was a very caring relationship. It was before I knew you. I noticed you. So
Well, I noticed you guys as well. I'm thinking this is lovely. I can see this couple here meeting for coffee and breakfast, and I thought, there's something very special about this. So, Michelle, who you met when you were housemates, I believe, in your early
yes,
20s, and now you've
yes,
been together, and you've just turned 60. She's obviously been a wonderful companion, wonderful wife over all these years.
incredible, magnificent lady. Just yes, we I knew from a very early age that Michelle was the woman I wanted to be with, um, and I think she took a bit more convincing, but we got there. And funny, I'll be very honest with you. We briefly separated in about our eighth year, and for some reason I doubted that you could actually make a decision like that so young in your life. And fortunately, I was able to. We were obviously we started seeing each other again. But what it taught me is that you should never not trust your instinct. And I remember as that young man at 20, I was just about to turn 21 when I met Michelle. And I knew then, and you should trust that. And when we finally got back together many years later, I thought about that young guy and I should never have doubted him. Just you should always trust those instincts. And fortunately, it all worked out. And yes, we are incredibly happy. I don't know if there are. You probably are there lessons involved to teach people how to do it? I don't think so. If you meet the right person, it's not hard. Some people say it's a real. You got to work at it and you got to really. It's no, you don't really. Obviously, you have to think and care, and sometimes don't say those things you want to say or whatever. But I think it should be easy. It shouldn't be too hard. Uh, and we have a lot of, we respect each other and we have a lot of fun and she's been incredibly supportive of this silly career of mine. But having said that, when I met Michelle, she'd actually she was at drama school herself, and she had a father, unfortunately, that didn't encourage her to do what my parents kind of encouraged me to do. And she would have been a wonderful actress. Having said that, she's not a frustrated actress, but she actually understands my craft and she understands what I go through, and at times has wonderful insights into my work. And I like to think I can equally be as supportive with her career as well.
Hmm. Well, Brett, it was something special when I saw you both there at the cafe and just the way you guys were connecting and meeting for breakfast. I thought this is a very special relationship going on here. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And then it clicked, the penny dropped, a place to call home. And that's when we connected, had a bit of a chat. And as a result, having you as a guest here at Monday Matters to hear your story and what it's been like. We're very, very honoured to have you, and thank you for the
Oh,
enjoyment and pleasure that you've brought to our screens over all of these years. We do appreciate it. So thank you for this wonderful chat this morning, Brett.
absolute pleasure. It's been a delight. Thank you.